Welcome back to another FPL video and podcast. This will be the best wildcard team for Game Week 8 as we're in the middle of an international break. There will be an updated wildcard team podcast next week, and the same goes for the transfer tips and team selection. So keep your eyes peeled by smashing the like button of this video, getting it to the 200 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links like my Patreon, which is patreon.com/DylanRCM. Click the join button on YouTube if you want to become a channel member and support the channel even further, getting access to many perks like early access to my videos in the process. And there's also the Discord server, FPL League, and Drafthound, which you can see on screen. And currently, in terms of Game Week 8 and the chances of a clean sheet, Man City are top, with Arsenal in second, Nottingham Forest third, Man United fourth, and Tottenham in fifth. I'll be referring to Drafthound in more of my upcoming videos, and I've done so for the past year or so be sure to check it out and sign up as a pro paid tier member to gain access to all of the features. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. My budget is 101.8 million according to the FPL website, and it will be different for everybody because of the amount of selling value you may have accumulated throughout the season. So bear all of that in mind, but I will try to discuss this and take this into account when highlighting the best players in each position, some possible downgrades you can make so you can afford the foundations of this 50-man squad. I'm going to start off with the two goalkeepers, and I'm going for some different options from the get-go. Andre Onana is currently the highest scoring goalkeeper in FPL with 39 points, 3 more than David Raya, who cost 5.6 million. Now, I think over the course of the season, Raya will score the most points of any goalkeeper, and it's worth mentioning that Alisson would have the most clean sheets if he didn't get injured so often, and it looks like he's going to be out until after the next international break in November. So that's a big blow for Liverpool, and you could go for Kelleher actually as a short-term replacement, so to speak, but we're only talking about around a month or so, and for a goalkeeper on the wild card, I'd recommend someone a bit longer term than that, at least until the end of the year, essentially. And I'm going for Onana for that very reason. He's got great long-term fixtures, and the same applies to Jordan Pickford, who got 15 points in Game Week 7, so there are plenty of options in this position. Robert Sanchez at 4.7 million is keeping pace with the likes of Raya and Onana as the highest scoring goalkeepers in FPL. And I also like Sells, who withdrew from the Belgian squad due to injury, so that's one to monitor. But at the moment, I'm going to go for Onana as the main choice between the sticks. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. An alternative to cover that United defence will be Mazraoui if he's fit at 4.6 million. He's my second favourite, but I think Onana will get the save points. He can make penalty saves, and bonus points will definitely happen for him over the course of the season. But the backup will be a simple 4 million choice in Fabianski, but I'm sure many of you will be urging me to push for Kelleher as a great goalkeeper option on the wild card, and that could definitely work for a month or so. But afterwards, when Alisson is back, he's going to drop back down to the bench, and Liverpool's fixtures aren't exactly the greatest for the next couple of game weeks. We are stacked in terms of 4-point family defenders and under, but in terms of a pure standout, I don't think there are many. Nottingham Forest have been very impressive defensively so far this season though, so either Aina or Milenkovic would be a great way of covering that defence, and Sells in goal, if he's fit for Game Week 8, is another great option there for Nottingham Forest. I wouldn't recommend Alex Moreno, who costs 4.4 million, because he's less nailed on than the other defenders, and Sells in goal. So I would go for Milenkovic in this best wildcard team. He's got goal threat, and over the weekend, he provided an assist for Chris Wood in that 1-1 draw at Stamford Bridge. So I think Aina will be better for bonus points, but Milenkovic will get more goals and assists combined throughout this season, but there's not going to be much in it between those two, and currently just a 2 points separate the two defenders from Nottingham Forest, so either one would be a great acquisition for your FPL team. And the same goes for the second highest scoring defender in FPL so far this season, and that's Gabriel, who has scored a few goals already in this campaign. He is the biggest threat from set pieces of any team in the Premier League, and it's a big weapon for Arsenal in a lot of these matches, particularly in those tough away games where Gabriel kind of shines above the rest. So Gabriel is still a great option long term, but I'm going to deviate away from double Arsenal defence as they face the likes of Liverpool at home in Game Week 9, followed up by Chelsea and Newcastle away in back-to-back weeks. But I think Arsenal do raise their level for the bigger teams and in these tougher occasions, particularly away from home. In the last 3 league campaigns, I think Arsenal have conceded 45 goals at the Emirates and only 32 on their travels. So I actually don't mind the upcoming fixtures, and I think Arsenal will keep 2 clean sheets from the next 4. So you could still double up on their defence if you wish, and long term, that will definitely pay off. But I'm going for a different structure with this wildcard team. Now, the third defender isn't the most nailed-on player you'll ever see, so if you go for this player and asset, try to ensure you've got the defensive depth ready to cover just in case he misses out. And I'm talking about Rico Lewis, who has started the last couple of games across all competitions, playing 90 minutes also very regularly, but I don't think that will always stick with the likes of Kyle Walker at right back. And in the defensive midfield, you've got plenty of options there for Man City who can play in that position, even with Rodri out for the entire season. I think that injury does open the door for Lewis to play more minutes and get more starts, but it doesn't mean he'll start week in, week out in the Premier League. So just bear that in mind. I'm also going for a mid-price defender who is right up there amongst the highest scoring in FPL so far, and that is Konate. But I have to say, if you've got the extra funds, Trent Alexander-Arnold is worth the extra millions, and the attacking contributions are coming very soon. But at the moment, with what I'm going for here and spending more money in the midfield and forward line, Konate is one of those sort of sacrifices, but I don't think it's the worst downgrade you could possibly make, as Liverpool boast the best defensive record so far this season. Only 2 goals conceded, and the expected goals conceded figure is less than 4. Very impressive numbers, and I think Konate is a huge reason why they've been so solid defensively. With these 4 defenders, you are covering 4 of the best defences in the Premier League so far, with Nottingham Forest being right up there. I think Arsenal's underlying stats haven't been particularly great defensively, but you also have to bear in mind, in 2 matches against Brighton and Man City, they were down to 10 men, so I think this will kind of even out over the next couple of months, and Arsenal will shoot right up there with the likes of Liverpool and Man City. But it's worth highlighting again, Alisson is injured for the next month or so, and with tough fixtures coming up for Liverpool, I think we'll see them concede more goals and they won't be as solid defensively in the next month or 2. This is a big moment for them to see if they're really in this title race with Man City and Arsenal. I think they are, but they would be kind of the outside favourites at this moment in time. My 5th defender is going to be a very simple one, very cheap and budget friendly, and that's Van den Berg. But if you've got 0.1 or 0.2 million extra, you could go for Greaves, and at the moment I'd actually suggest Wout Faes as the best 4.1 million defender or under. But with this squad, I'm using every single penny, so there's going to be nothing left over in the bank to make that incremental upgrade. Brentford still have good fixtures coming up, but their defensive stats are poor and they're conceding multiple goals in every game. Even in Game Week 7, a 5-3 victory, they conceded so many chances to Wolves, and I just don't really back them for any clean sheets, even with those promising fixtures. But with the other defenders, you can rotate between those 4 and find a nice balance in terms of fixtures, clean sheet potential, and attacking threat, and some of them can get bonus points quite regularly, particularly looking at Rico Lewis and Gabriel. Chelsea's fixtures until Game Week 11 aren't particularly great on paper, but they've got a nice fixture swing from Game Week 12 up until January essentially, and Cole Palmer is fixture proof regardless. Liverpool away and Arsenal at home, he could do something in those matches. I wouldn't go so far as to captain him in those 2 game weeks, but against Newcastle, Man United, I honestly wouldn't mind doing so. He's got such a high ceiling and the explosiveness makes him a great FPL asset. The consistency as well has been phenomenal since he started in Game Week 7 last season. So Cole Palmer makes the wildcard team, and the same goes for another option at a similar price in Bukayo Saka, who got 16 points against Southampton. Now, for a lot of people looking to points chase and buy Saka right now, I don't expect him to get that level of return for quite some time. Now, against Bournemouth, there is the possibility of a double-digit haul, but not to the same level as we saw against Southampton. Then you've got Liverpool, Newcastle and Chelsea, where Saka can tick along nicely with contributions in all of those games, but it might just be an assist or a goal and no bonus points. That is certainly possible, but he has had a great start to this season. The underlying numbers are phenomenal. He's actually leading the creativity charts, not just in the Premier League, but across Europe's top 5 divisions over the likes of Yamal, Rafinha and other great players in those divisions. So Saka for me is a great option to have, and still my favourite Arsenal attacker, although Havertz is another great option up front, who's even cheaper. Now, the third midfielder is going to be Mbeumo, who is my favourite mid-price midfielder in the game. It goes without saying, great underlying stats, he's on penalties, the fixtures are there, and he's very consistent for this price. You can't go wrong, although you do have alternatives like Johnson, Maddison, you've also got Jarrod Bowen, Diaz and Jota, but I think Mbeumo is a step above every single one of them. But it has to be said, with this wildcard team, there'll be no Liverpool attacking coverage, no Salah, which some of you might be uneasy with, but I'll show you afterwards a draft which contains Salah and also a very balanced 50-man squad, but it means a huge sacrifice in another position. But the fourth midfielder is going to be Brennan Johnson. At this price and below, I do prefer McNeil, but Johnson is still a very good choice with that vein of form he's on. 6 games in a row he has scored in. Could he make it 7? I think he could with those fixtures and the amount of chances Spurs are creating. Johnson has 21 shots inside the box, as I highlighted in the Transfer Tips podcast. That is an insane stat for a 6.5 million midfielder with such low ownership. So I'd still recommend Johnson, but just bear in mind we could be approaching the end of his run, but he could still be a good FPL option in the long term. The fifth midfielder is McNeil with great fixtures until early December in Gameweek 14, and he's my favourite Everton asset period, even over Pickford, Mikalenko, Branthwaite when he's fit, and all these options. Calvert-Lewin hasn't been doing it, but McNeil has been very consistent with some massive hauls from time to time. He did get a 1-pointer against Newcastle in Gameweek 7, but with those upcoming fixtures, I could see McNeil getting 1 or 2 double-digit hauls. Another player I highlighted in the Trans Tips podcast is Delap, with great fixtures for Ipswich Town, not just for the next 3 game weeks, but also beyond that. There are some tough games sprinkled in between, but it's a long period where Ipswich Town have a favourable run and could actually win some of these matches, scoring a lot of goals in the process, and Delap is by far the best Ipswich Town asset right now, even over the defenders like Davis and Greaves, who could offer good value, but I think Delap is really good as a third forward in your setup. But next up, I'm going for the most expensive player in the game. He has blanked 2 times in a row, and he's never blanked 3 times in a row for his entire Premier League career, and that is Erling Haaland, who faces Wolves away and Southampton at home. It might seem like those going without Haaland are going to win FPL, and they can definitely do really well without him, and he's not essential for me. You can go without Haaland and perform very well in FPL, but it's worth highlighting that if you are wildcarding right now, it's very risky to go without Haaland for the next 2 game weeks at least, and City's run until Game Week 12 is incredible. Even in that fixture against Tottenham at home, Haaland could score a couple of goals, so I'd still recommend him up until Game Week 13 at the very least. So I think going without Haaland is very risky at this stage, so you might have survived for the last 2 game weeks, but it's going to be very difficult against the 2 worst defences in the Premier League so far this season in Wolves and Southampton, who both have the exact same expected goals conceded figure at 13.6. It does make the triple captaincy debate very tough. Do you put it on Erling Haaland in Game Week 8 or Game Week 9? My slight preference is with Southampton at home in Game Week 9, but honestly, Haaland can do it both home and away, but generally speaking, a lot of his hat-tricks have come at the Etihad, so that's why I would push towards that instead of the away fixture at the Molineux. But the final forward is another budget option who I've had since Game Week 1. He's been fantastic in terms of bonus points, and that's Chris Wood. Whenever he scores, he gets maximum bonus or possibly 2, but it's still a very healthy return, and he can do it both home and away. There is this pattern where he scores, blanks, and if this pattern continues, it looks like he'll blank in Game Week 8 and return in Game Week 9, but I'm sure there will be a change to that specific pattern. He's on penalties as well, especially in the absence of Morgan Gibbs-White, but he took the penalty whilst Gibbs-White was on the pitch against Brighton and Hove Albion, and the next 4 fixtures for Nottingham Forest look really encouraging. I could see Chris Wood scoring a few goals in that time frame, and I wouldn't mind having him in the long term as well. So it's been one of my best picks in FPL so far this season, but I've benched him on 2 occasions, including Game Week 7, as I'll discuss in the transfer plans and team selection podcast. I'm very happy with this 15-man squad, but there are of course a few possible issues with this squad, and one of them would be no Trent Alexander-Arnold. You've also not got that mid-price forward at least to make it easier to go to Watkins or Kai Havertz if you wanted to maybe chase those fixtures from time to time. Even Dominic Solanke would be another good option to consider up front, but I still like this structure. You've got Palmer and Saka in the midfield with Mbeumo as a mid-priced option, and you've also just got a lot of squad depth. It might result in some benching headaches, but ultimately you are in a really strong position if you get injuries over the international break or whenever really. Suspensions could also play a part. This squad will help you prepare for the long term as you tackle the fixtures in the best possible way and go for some of the best assets in FPL. Using the website FPL.team, I'm going to show you the starting 11 and the captaincy, with Onana in goal, a back three of Milenkovic, Lewis and Gabriel, a midfield 5 of Palmer, Mbeumo, Johnson, Saka and McNeil, with Chris Wood and Haaland up front, and the bench is very strong with Fabianski, Delap, Konate and Vandenberg. The expected points is 57.5 with Haaland as the captain. there's nothing left over in the bank, and if you had to make some downgrades, I think Onana to Sanchez or Sels would be one possible move you could make. You could also downgrade one of these defenders, either Konate, Lewis or Milenkovic, to a Mikalenko or maybe a Wout Fass potentially, but I'd probably rather go for one of Milenkovic or Lewis to be downgraded and keep Konate in the process. I'm still sure a lot of you would be able to afford this 50-man squad. You could also downgrade Johnson to a Smith Rowe or Semenyo, who you'd then bench for the next 3 game weeks and then start from game week 11 or 12 onwards. And there's also another option you could do up front, which is Chris Wood downgraded to Raul Jimenez, who is in excellent form at the moment for Fulham. So I wouldn't mind going for that sort of move as well. But next up, I'm going to show you a different sort of draft. So I'm going to take money away from the forward line and also kind of spread it around in every single position. So you will see the likes of Trent once again, and maybe you'll prefer this upcoming team compared to the original team I showed you throughout most of this podcast. And I have to say, a bit of a spoiler alert, FPL Team are actually rating that squad a little bit higher with the expected points, which is over 60. Although he isn't flagged in FPL at the time of this recording, Sels is an injury doubt for Game Week 8. Let's see how serious the injury is, because he did withdraw from the Belgian squad, but a lot of international break injuries are happening in the last couple of days. If he's available, he's my favourite budget goalkeeper in the entire game at only 4.5 million. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Lewis and Gabriel is quite similar to what I showed you earlier, but Trent is still a massive upgrade over Konate in my opinion. The midfield is identical, but I've upgraded Johnson to Mohamed Salah, and the rest remains the same with Palmer, Mbeumo, Saka and McNeil, with Chris Wood and Solanke up front, and the bench comprises of Fabianski, Raul Jimenez, Wout Fass and Aït-Nouri. So I've gone for some different options there. Another forward I like the look of is Cunha, and I'd recommend buying him from Game Week 9 onwards if you've got the funds or want to go for a mega differential who's got a lot of bonus points potential as well. Now, I've got 0.1 million left in the bank with this setup. The expected points is 60.3, but FPL.team actually rank Salah a little bit higher than Haaland for the captaincy in Game Week 8, and they may be correct, but I think Haaland against Wolves is the best captaincy option on paper. So if you've got him, I'd highly suggest captaining him myself, but I wouldn't mind Salah or Saka as a vice or even as a captaincy option. I wouldn't go for Palmer this week at Anfield. It's one of the rare instances where I talk you against it, but it's completely up to you. He could still perform relatively well. A Spurs attack against West Ham isn't too shabby, but I think Haaland, Salah and Saka are the 3 best captaincy options on paper in Game Week 8, but there are so many other choices that could easily outperform them and produce double-digit hauls in the process. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to 300 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It'd go a long way to support my channel. Let me know which wildcard team you prefer, the non-Haaland one or the original squad I showed you, which has no Trent Alexander-Arnold or Salah. I think both of them are very strong, and it all depends on your preference, but currently I'd recommend the main team with Erling Haaland in there up until Game Week 11 at the very least. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 8 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.